get to the cutscene of the attack on the Camp Broken Glass, and one thing I love is that noticed was the cutscene is called Alea Lacta Est, meaning a roll of the dice, which is it's a roll of Quintus's dice to see how things go.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's his last gambit, essentially. I mean, we see that in a very real sense in the next cutscene.
Eorzean Senna is a BAMF and just like, yo, stop fighting. Nope. Pause, chill out, everybody. He has the line, what is it? This child is the damn near worst envoy I've ever witnessed, or something like that, when referring to Euless and his message of destruction.
Yeah, and I like Eorzean as well, because he's, mostly around nature, but in general, he's supposed to be like hugely empathetic and almost telepathic. So it makes sense that he would react so strongly to this kind of thing.
Yeah, I also like that, and this only matters if you've done the White Mage quest, but it feels like you're meeting Eorzean Senna as you meet him at the end of the White Mage quests, and like some of the maturity he garners from that.
I think so, right? Because normally you would have expected this kind of thing from his sister at the beginning.
Yeah, but so it's not like it's needed, but I do think that like 2.0 Eorzean is a little bit different than Endwalker, and the White Mage quest feels like it actually does build to that and therefore rewards you for having played it. But because he's a background character, if you don't do it, it's not going to be confusing. It's not like it doesn't.
No, yeah.
I love that moment. And then the 10th Legion, Lucia presents the information that the 10th Legion is trying to do the counterattack, and Quintus tells everyone to stand down, and that is good.
The most important part of this for me is the extremely significant nature to the Ascians and to the Garleans of the Garlean chain, right, of the flag.
Yes.
And then in just what is the most beautiful thing, the most typical touch, when you go to Elpis, you see the Garlean chain on the stonework there. It's an Ascian image that he repurposed.
Yes, because Emmett Silk is a nostalgic motherfucker.
He is.
And that's I love that that's a repeated major tone that's also shown to us in Endwalker, like explicitly. But I love that it's also, there are undertones of it with throughout Shadowbringers and throughout stuff like the chain link. So yeah, so Quintus with the chain is super resonant. So one of the things is I really hope Euless is a major character in 6.x onwards. Really, really badly.
I think he's earned a position as... I think him and Maxima together work as mouthpieces for, like, when you combine them, or have both of them on side as mouthpieces for the guy. We'll need like a voice in the opposition as well, which could be Julius. I mean, there's no saying that he goes along with our vision for Garlamald, and there's no saying that he has to. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe that's good. But I think he's a good character. I think we needed a youthful perspective, right? You've got Maxima, who's not necessarily like old, but he's a entrenched political figure. Meanwhile, Julius is almost this guy. He could be like a rising star in the ranks of Garlamald.
I really like that notion you get at, which is he does not need to be our stalwart, perfect ally, but that I would imagine that what we see from Garlamald is something, assuming it doesn't just completely fragment, if we see a new Garlamald in any meaningful way, I would imagine it would be something more like a republic. And because one of the benefits of that from a narrative perspective is that they could have multiple figureheads, right? Like you have multiple figures in position of power. You have whatever you want to call it, a congress or anything of people like Maxima, people like Euless, any new people, Legati who might, Gaius. Like there's a bunch of different ways you could play that all out.
I'd love to see Gaius not take political office. I'd love to see him retire in like a hut or maybe even, and it's hard to say, I love Gaius and I love his character, maybe even stand trial.
I think that's the thing, is you can have truth and reconciliation and you can have consequences, but that's, for instance, I think he should stand trial, but I think all that he has done to try to make up for what he's done, I think the fact that the context under why he did the actions he did should matter, not necessarily recuse him from fault or justice, but I think there's a difference between people having to atone versus people just. I don't think the answer is retribution in all cases.
Oh, no,
right?
no.
And in fact, in most cases, but there's a difference between having Gaius accept his actions as crimes in a public way to those who might be considered his victims, and that allowing them some peace and ability to move on, a recognition of the past, right? And that in and of itself can be important, but also in order to avoid the mistakes of the past and to avoid cycles, there has to be a road to atonement for not everyone, maybe, but there has to be in general a road to atonement. If you set up a system such that any mistake or failing under other systems is immediately only punishable by the harshest of possibilities, you then make it so that why would anyone ever try to be better?
Yeah.
If there's no road to atonement, why would you try to be better?
No, exactly. I mean, I definitely don't think that we see. I don't think we need or want to see Nuremberg trials, but
Right.
in my ideal world,
Except for maybe like for Valens, but he's gone.
Oh yeah, Valens would deserve to, yeah. But in the case of guys, I say love. Again, I like the character. I don't want to come across as not liking Gaius because I do like him, but I would like to see Gaius given exile and then sent off to quietly live in the countryside or in the New World or something like that.
Or have to serve in some capacity for those regions in which he annexed. Like continue to help whirl it. Maybe not in a position of power, but have to do like any number of ways. Exile I'm fine with. And the new, like all of you're saying, all those recommendations I'm super down for. But yeah, I do think that there should be at some point story that centers around recognition and contention with the past. Else we fail to learn.
Well, it would be really interesting to see that intertwine with the reconciliation storyline that we're talking about with the tribes as well.
Yes.
To see those two storylines intertwine. With Gaius, I mean, they could put him to work dealing with like rogue machina in. I'm sure there's plenty in like the battlegrounds of Werlit and of Bozja, stuff like that. You know, I mean, we see that. Obviously, when you get there, you see that it's like World War II style. World War I style, maybe.
Well, and we don't know how like the Republic of Landis or Nalmask or any of the regions in Ilsabard are doing. So you could also imagine that maybe he could be part of, maybe not necessarily leading for many reasons, but a part of any sort of contingents helping to go stabilize those regions with humanitarian efforts.
Well, I could see his companions stepping up to lead, right, and him being a part of their organization, right? The ones from the weapon quest line.
Absolutely. You could also see a world in which he just is, exiled or just said like go do something quiet and just lives in Werlit with his daughter.
Yeah, I'd also love to see them disappear, right? And then we get to the New World, and the second settlement that we get to is led by Gaius, his daughter, his companions. That would be awesome, and just out of the blue.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If the New World has a Garlean installation and one of the legions, right? Him being exiled there, but then still not being able to escape his past would be interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. What's his male companion's name? The one who was
I could not.
The Eorzean, yeah. But anyway, if he does ever try to, run for public office, he'll definitely just kill him, right? Or try. I mean, Gaius is a badass, but
you're not gonna kill fucking Gaius particularly easy.
No. But I don't think Gaius would. I think Gaius has matured past that point in his story. I don't think Gaius is looking to return to leadership.
Yes. I think it's one of those things where you can't ignore Gaius if you're going to have a new Garlamald story, but that doesn't mean he needs to play center stage.
No, I agree with you completely.
So we then get to the suicide of Quintus. And as I said near the top, the glorious dream we shared and united in a piece of prosperity. Like, he clearly believes in an ascendant Garlamald controlling the world and that being something that could be considered good. But I think the thing is that the underlying philosophy of that, you see his opinion on existence being so ripe with conflict, any form of any dissent would then be treated with utter cruelty and abhorrent action, as we see with Garlamald already. So even if he believes that, there's no way that world is ever a good world for anyone except for the people at the top. It just, reality shows that, let alone what our best guess would be.
Yeah, so So 2 points, right? First of all, we can agree that this is seppuku, right? This is seppuku through
Yeah.
a lens. And there's ideals of Bushido, like we were talking about. And I think it's offering a critique on that and possibly on Japanese Empire. I mean, I don't feel comfortable necessarily 100% saying that, but I feel like there's some allusions to it.
I would, as a quick diatribe, I would just say that because as much as Japanese Empire is its own thing, I think that there's a fundamental criticism of empires in such a way that it is still applicable to even some of the unique situations around the early 20th century Japanese Empire. So I think you're right. I think you were correct.
In terms of Quintus's goal, I do believe that he believes fundamentally in the unification of the world under Garlamald's might. But at the same time, I almost think, and this is my least charitable side thinking about Quintus, but then again, I don't think he deserves all that much charity. And that is that his main interest, and he might not know it, is in being part of a goal that puts his in-group forward. I just don't know if he's that principled at the core of it. I think he's a very selfish man.
I think you're right. I don't even think that that's that uncharitable. I think that's from explicit text alone. That's a pretty fair read. I don't think that is. I don't think you need to twist any of the things he says to get to take that meaning away.
Right. No, I don't think you do either. It's not that he doesn't have principles. I just think he's very selfish and mercenary in what those principles are. I think it's because he's a Garlean. He wants to be on top. He sees his people being on top, and that's what he's sort of committing to.
Yeah, well, and that's why also the justification, right? Our only defense was to conquer, which is just bullshit.
Yeah, it's absolute nonsense.
If it wasn't so dark, this would almost be a comedic beat, but you have Alice and everyone running to the tertium going, I just hope he doesn't do something rash, and then immediately it cuts to blood spatter.
Yeah.
It's just like it's a great juxtaposition, don't get me wrong, but it's so much like, I remember I saw that for the time, I was like, Jesus. The only way it could be more like, holy shit, is if you saw the animation of the splatter.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That would be the only more explicit way. I have trauma over seeing these, like non-player available guns animated, because I remember writing one of my first lore guides of the duties back when in the Google Docs days, and it was of Hawk Manor, and there's a gun just on a table in there. I was like, where'd they get this?
I love the little details. The little details you're never gonna notice running it, but when you start to interrogate.
Yeah, that drove me crazy back in the day. So now every time I see one of these slightly lower poly guns, I'm just like, God damn.
The guns.
Give me the answers.
I'm just imagining a conspiracy board Niniri, but it's just the pin board's just all different guns from 14. So moving on from that, though, we get what I think we've referred to in multiple different episodes so far, but is a wonderful scene, and that is Euless by the campfire. And in an expansion replete with some of my favorite moments in gaming, this is definitely one of the highlights. The earning of peace through compassion, winning over those who your foe before by speaking and acting upon empathy is just, say it 1,000 times, I'll say it again. It earns this point.
It does earn it. It's the Alamegan soldier that gives Euless the food that really makes it for me.
That is the the rising chorus gut punch of when it turns and it's an Alamegan soldier offering him a cup of soup that is a step recipe, and then it's a wonderful moment.
Right.
It really is. And watching him break and this break of this acceptance of the compassion empathy being offered him, that the world can be better, and all the horrors he has seen, all the horrors he has had to perpetrate, not just working under Garland, but the murder of his own family, self-defense murder, killing of his own family, all the weight of everything he has gone through so far falls upon him in that moment. And also the realization that a better world can exist, because in a world where a better world can't exist and there's nothing to hope for, there's certainty, right? But if a better world can exist, and that comes upon you, and then you also get Sicard and Emmanuel just being themselves. And in other games and stories, I hate when there's an intrusion of a different tonality. But what I out of nowhere in a way that just doesn't work for me sometimes. But where I think this really works is that in this serious and powerful moment, and that them bickering and stuff is not a. It is a showing of unity and conflict, right? Unity and contention. It is like, okay, these guys still, are at each other's throat, but they can work together, but they can be by each other's side. And that is also such an important lesson for Euless in that moment, right? And so even this like little bickering is an important note.
The whole scene is put together really well. I think it's exemplified most by the Alamegan giving him the food, but many of the elements are put in to just make it an excellent scene, and also to make it a scene that serves the wider narrative. I think I don't remember the exact quote, but there's a quote about how the small things in life are what makes it.
It's the little things that make life worth living, don't you think? And, like we stated before, there are multiple times where people state the core thesis of Endwalker in different ways, and there's one more.
Yeah, it's a humble way of saying it. It's a humble way of. It's not as grandiose as the way that we hammer it home to Meteion or anything like that, but it's very fitting, and it is the core of Endwalker, I believe. It's these small glimmers of warmth, because even though they're small, they can be huge. They can be life-changing.
A simple cup of soup can matter to a person in an important moment as much as a declaration of the requirement for man to walk. They are both in vital symbols, and they are recognition. It is a recognition that the universe can be vast and cold, but what is valuable is not cursing it for being so, but to find the joys in what is.
And I think they almost call back to this in how what we use to break Meteion, and I use it in the softest term possible, is both these grand ideals and a field of flowers, a gift from a father.
Yes, I have nothing to add to that. But I love that you get to see the PTSD of all those who survived, the Dragonsong War, the Alamegan Revolution, the Doman Revolution. Like, they all have their own struggles and are still showing up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crux of it's a confluence of generational trauma almost.
Yeah, which is why you would hope something like a Truth and Reconciliation would be what's required, because everyone's going to be struggling, and we got to get through this together. It can't be like these people did X, or just, it's not like Garleans are at fault, right? Otherwise, you get Treaty of Versailles, you get making people desperate again, and when you make people desperate, they'll turn to anyone. Like if it just becomes blame Garlamald suck, Garleans suck, it'll happen again. It'll all happen again.
Yeah,
and you just can't. The cycle can't continue. But speaking of like a new Garlamald Republic and stuff, Lucia could definitely have also a big role to play in that.
Yeah, I think she has a role to play as like a mediator. I think she stays with Ishgard. I don't think she goes off to become a member of their assembly or whatever, but I think she mediates.
You don't think she plays a Raban?
No, I don't. Oh, well, it's possible. It wouldn't be my chosen story. I think Maxima's the better choice.
I think Maxima is the better choice, and I think you're right. That could be played different ways. It could just be played as a mediator. I would be not just accepting. I think that there's a version of that story where she feels such a duty to do that I would be willing to see it. However, because we've seen that play out with Raban already, I don't think there's as much of a need to have the impetus to tell that story again. So I would be down for it. I don't need it.
Right, exactly. Aymeric would have to resign and go live with her, though.
They cannot be without each other.
Yeah, I feel like that's such intense. Then again, Raban moved away from Nanamo, right? Which is insane when I think about it.
Yeah.
But then again, he needed to. He needed to for Nanamo's story.
Yeah. He needed to for her story, and it was also the right move for his, right?
Yeah.
Technically, it's not the final note of that cutscene, but the cutscene's about to drastically switch. So, on the final note of this cutscene, the flower goes blue.
Yeah.
And one more expression, a different expression of hope, of love, of sorrow, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then the radio plays, and everything goes wrong.
I know the radio, the sound of. I know I mentioned this last episode, but the little jingle that they play when the radio comes on is so. It just works. I don't know what it is. It really works. That little thing. It just is so good.
Yeah, it has the right accordance, and I think part of it is the fact that musically has the feeling of like 1930s radio.
Yeah.
Makes it sound like an era gone by.
Right, exactly.
And because it sounds like, which is exactly what the Garlean sort of dirge is supposed to be.
Yeah, I think I mentioned in the last episode that it almost reminded me of Bioshock, like it was like a Rapture type vibe, which obviously hits the right notes, right? It's this foreboding, this falling civilization, the almost like Art Deco inspiration that again calls back to the Ascians at the same time. You know, you've got so much going on in it.
Yeah, that period is very much, if it is evocative of that, and which is also evocative of World War II. You know, so like the 30s, the 40s is that it also has its place in the sort of iconography around Garlamald.
Yeah, I mean the 20s up until like the 40s, and maybe a little bit later for some, but all the periods of the death of empire as well, of course. They are the times that the big empires go down. Not counting certain ones like America, and then England takes a little bit longer to go as well.
And empire as it exists currently is different. Not to say it's not as bad, it's different.
Yeah, definitely. It's the moment you hear that riff, right? The moment you see them clustered around the radio, you think, yeah, I'm worried about that. And then, of course, everything goes wrong.
Yep, Varys' voice plays and everything goes wrong. And one lovely note I love is that it tempers all the people who aren't protected, but you see the tempering blue flames in their eyes, so it's clear that that's what's going on. Like, it's a really nice touch.
Yes, they make it clear.
It's also, so one thing I want to actually mention about that is every example of tempering we've seen in the game so far, I guess other than the towers in 5.x, but the blue flame is a necessary part of it and is something that's propagated through them bathing a being in flame. Do you think Anima's ability to temper, since we know tempering is not inherent to primals needing to be summoned the way they is, you think Anima was summoned in such a way where its ability to temper was tweaked and that's why it's able to do it as a projection rather than just needing to bathe people in a specific aether?
I think Fandaniel shows himself in this expansion as an expert in extending the influence of the primal, but by taking the limbs of Varys and putting them in the towers, and by the extension through the radio, stuff like that. I think I'm sure that you could link it back into the intense sort of knowledge that he might gain through the memories of Hermes on the creation and the etheric mechanics of life.
Yeah.
But I think he shows off as almost a specialist in this subject, in taking what a primal can do and dispersing it almost.
No, I think there's a lot of in-lore ways to justify it. I thought it was just worth noting because it's so different by comparison and contrast.
I think it also makes sense that if the materials like the scales have these certain properties, they could be used to reverse it almost. You could reverse engineer this kind of connection, this kind of ability.
Well, this is like a little small thing, but in a real quick shot of all the people who are getting tempered, you see Drusilla, the Reaper from the Reaper questline. I don't think it's actually her. I think it's just them reusing her model, because her being there doesn't make any sense, because she's, as far as we know, been in Ul'dah for months, if not over a year at this point.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, it's literally, it's like 6 frames. It's tiny. It's not. I only noticed it because I've seen the cutscene like 5 times now.
Could it be another Reaper? Could it just be like a similar looking other? I'm sure there are. Well,
no, it's like literally, it's not the same outfit. It's literally her head, her hair, her guard. Like it's not.
Sister confirmed.
Yeah, sister. I'll take it. But oh no, wait. Actually, her entire family is dead. Reaper questline.
Secretly alive. They've done it before. They'll do it again. Yeah.
Secret evil twin sister.
Hey, Eda and Lise.
But it's evil. Which one's the evil sister?
Who knows? We didn't meet Eda. Maybe she was evil.
Yes, she sacrificed herself to save Fordola as a child in order to make sure that Fordola would go onwards to kill people in the future.
Exactly.
That was her 5D plan. I don't know if Fandaniel's outfit for this changes depending on which Grand Company you're in, but because it was Maelstrom for me, I'm just going to say Maelstrom evil confirmed. For when he shows up to teleport you away.
I don't think it changes. I don't think so.
So, okay.
That would be crazy.
There you go. That would be a really nice little touch.
It would
It
be.
would serve no function, but I would take it.
So yeah, this is a really good part of the X-Pack. I love this section.
Yeah, we talked about this, I think at this point, 2 episodes ago. Who knows? Time is an illusion.
Quite a lot. We talked about it for a while.
But we have still yet more to say. And that is the capture by Fandaniel and the taking of our soul from within our body and placing it within a generic Garlean soldier.
Yeah. It's invasive. It's offensive. I got mad.
Yes, I've rarely felt that level of like wrong, like that level of like, yeah, like you say, invasive, of defiled, for lack of a better way. It's brilliantly effective at doing what it's trying to do, and the Fandaniel's plan is brilliant and harrowing. So
Yes.
it works within the story itself.
Yeah, and it was disturbing. And then I did see Zenos walking around in Niniri's body, and I was like, that's pretty funny.
Before this recording, I may have gone back through those cutscenes and recorded all of them with Niniri in them.
Oh, really?
Because I wanted to see what it would look like, and I wanted to make sure when we talked about it, I could show that footage. And it does not disappoint.
I love that.
The body swap horror of it all. So our soul is taken out of our bodies, put into a Garlean soldier, so our body is basically soulless. And this technique was created, the technology of this was created by Aulus.
Another callback to Aulus. They love to talk about Aulus.
Yes. And it had been so long since I had done the actual dungeon for Alamigo, I had forgotten that it was actually a mechanic for that boss fight.
Yeah, for the Pac-Man, right?
Yeah. And so this isn't a thing that comes out of nowhere. It's completely set up ahead of time.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is it's set up ahead of time on an even grander scale by it being what Elidibus does to Zenos.
And which he references.
Yeah, he does.
Too. You know, he talks about how he grew stronger from it because he could see all of his faults and imperfections in his technique when he didn't have the benefit of all his strength.
Yeah.
And he also has a line, this is jumping forward a little bit, but he has the line that references where does strength come from the soul, from the body. And we don't really get a definitive answer from him or from this event.
Yeah. I would have to imagine it's a bit of both.
Yes.
You know, we know that bodies are important because we know that strong void tech can only be put into strong bodies if they want to retain their strength. So the body is important. I did have to say, Zenos, yeah, I might grow a little stronger, but I'm a white mage. This is a guy with a sword who can't use magic. I'm not sure how fair this is.
Yeah, textually that makes a lot of sense. I mean, having played Paladin, for me, it was like, yeah, okay, well, I know how to use a sword.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the new is in game, but
we get the line from Fandaniel, which just makes me laugh, despite how dark the moment is, which is, exposition is in order.
Oh yeah, I love that. That made me laugh. That did make me laugh.
And it's so telling. The game can make you laugh in such a horrifying moment without losing like the pace or the feeling of the horror.
They were really on key with their tonal management in this expansion, I find.
Yes, which is, for me, personally, really, really important to me, because nothing throws me out like tonal mismanagement.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, a clash of tone that isn't handled well it can really knock you out of the story.
Yeah. The Anima is basically the name for the soul of Garlamald, which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because like Anima, soul. But it's interesting because the way that he is the soul of Garlamald, that's why he's called Anima here. Whereas Anima in 10 is because of the Anima Solis, the idea of the woman burning, which is, supposed to be Seymour's mother. And so it's cool that same name works under very different contexts in with this.
Yeah, it's the motherland, right?
Oh yeah, okay, so it's, yeah, there you go.
But no, yeah, I mean, Anima's always been spooky, right? It was kind of a disconcerting thing in 10.
Yeah, it feels so other, even in a story full of otherworldly things.
Right, the designs, the animations, other intent, and the fact of its existence, of it being Seymour's mother, is also disturbing. And in 10, I mean, it's obviously horror. In 14, it's horrifying. It's this guy's corpse twisted horribly into a weapon to be used against his own people.
In referring to 10 for one moment, but you get it shooting lasers from its eyes and its eyes bleeding, and you see its overdrive for the first time, and that there's something underneath, and that's terrifying. And I love how they put all that imagery to great effect in 14. for a very different function, but
Yeah, like phase
works
2,
perfectly.
when the underbody thing comes out, is
And it looks like Varys.
yeah, it looks like a demon version of Varys. It's
Yeah.
cool. It's really cool.
So then Zenos gets in our body, and we have a rush to go save our friends, which is a terrifying sequence to play through.
Yes, we are so weak in this new body.
We're so weak, and on top of that, you at first time playing through, you're genuinely thinking something bad is going to happen. Like, I don't know. I felt like I genuinely thought someone was going to die.
Yeah, I really thought that we were going to see a Scion die, and I thought this was going to be the point where a Scion was going to die. You know, well, any of them could have in that moment. It was, again, a genius plan, of course, by Fandaniel. You put Zenos in our body, it's going to be a pretty strong body. It's going to be a pretty strong combination, right? Even as much as he doesn't know how to use it, even as much as I'm a tiny Lalafell on the smallest size setting.
I will say, seeing Niniri and then the evil avatar of destruction appear behind you is it's pretty funny. It shouldn't be. It's a very dark moment, but it's also kind of hard not to laugh. Also, Niniri with a snicker on their face is also.
Oh yeah, the little smirk emote Niniri. It was so cute. Yeah. I mean, I've seen it before because I love to like make Niniri look a little mean. But this is a top 2 protagonist 14 cutscene moment. This and Asahi bending double to look at me for me as a Lalafell player.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, and it's so fantastic that we, beyond just talking about the metaphysics of strength and having a really good sense of what the Warrior of Light must seem like to other people, like especially to Garleans, is in that moment, it's terrifying for you. It also serves to reinforce some of the themes and story going on earlier with how the Garleans see you.
Yes, yeah, it is. It's a really fascinating view. I always think it's interesting to be able to get a chance to see from the outside in, right, and to see the wider picture from an outside sense. I just think it's a really interesting thing for us to get a chance to look at.
Yeah, and the relief you probably had to, but that I had when you throw your sword and destroy the void scent, and is just palpable. And I also love that Graha and crew figure it out so quick. Like it's not a torturous like, oh, they don't figure it out, come on, like they're like totally playing along. It's like, no, they know you, they get it, they're immediately like, wait, what the fuck? And I love that our friends know us.
Yeah, I mean, it's sweet that the friendship between the Scions is such an important part of the game, and I am glad that there was no scene where little Niniri Zenos and then Niniri in a Garlean's body are like wrestling and saying, shoot them, no, shoot them. I'm the real Niniri.
Yeah, it's not exactly comedic, but it's touching and a little comedic that it's Graha that's immediately like, nope.
Yeah,
that
Graha's it's sweet. Well, he's spent like 100 years writing fan fiction of us, so it makes sense. I also am glad they didn't do that, because I just don't buy that Zenos is a good actor. I don't think he could.
No,
I don't think he could.
He doesn't even try.
No,
he literally walks, doesn't say anything, and he doesn't even try.
He's doing an evil smirk as he's walking towards them.
Yep, which I appreciate. Also, the void scent that Zenos uses is very interesting. It's design.
Yeah, it is interesting. I wonder if it'll be an NPC. Like, I wonder if at some point, if we're in the void, we'll meet this guy. We'll meet this void scent.
This is a pet theory. This is not based in a ton of fact, but my idea that void scent packs are created with the void scent of you on another that is the reflection of you from the 13th.
Yeah, I could see that.
Would be interesting. I don't think that's not needed to be interesting, but it would also explain some of why only certain people can become Reapers and a lot of some of the intricacies around them, and why if the packed void scent that a Reaper, if that void scent is destroyed, Reapers no longer have Reaper powers and can't get a new pact. Like, because otherwise, if you were priorly a Reaper, why couldn't you get another pact? Which there's all sorts of reasons why you may not be able to. But it's just an interesting answer and would also kind of explain why that void scent is so unique and specific.
It is an interesting answer. The only thing that I would say is that I think they're definitely going to want to use a 13th reflection of us when we get to
the 13th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. So this is merely sort of a pet theory, and I think easily will be disproven. So I'm not married to it.
And I know that there are people who think that Unakalkai is our 13th reflection as well.
It could be
not a theory I'm hugely sold on. It's plausible, but not one that has me grabbed. I want to go and beat ourselves up when we're like aura sighted.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. I'm really excited for the 13th, which I believe is probably going to be 8.0 or 9.0.
I think yeah. We're definitely not getting it next. I would be very
no. I will bet money. Feel free to tell me I owe you $1 and I'm going to regret this in the future. But 7.0 is going to be terrestrial and it will be the New World or Mericidia. Or potentially Ilsabard / other places in the region in the world that we haven't been to that aren't New World or Mericidia, but it is terrestrial. It will be terrestrial.
I think it'll be I kind of see it being Cataclysm style, not in the way that it reshapes the world map, but in the way that we get, we go to Twilight Highlands that's over here, and then we get to a different zone that's over here. It's just different zones added all over the map is sort of what I see.
I wouldn't be surprised if you're correct. And so the final part of that cutscene is us fading to black and the reminder of Reacher's words yet again. So
yeah, they're really
clearly important.
Yeah, they're really lampshading the Ultima Thule thing, right, with this, evidently. And I think I can give this game enough credit to think they are also possibly lampshading other things past what has been released now. Who knows? It could be in an expansion's time we're going to hear Breacher's words again as Thancred is eaten by a giant cactuar or something.
Yeah. What a way to go.
Or a giant nutkin. That might be even more fitting.
Oh, but okay. You have me on the giant cactuar idea now. The giant cannibal cactuar. But I don't mind the repetition of it because also it only becomes so obvious when you've played through the story, your review. Like, obviously to us now, we're like, oh, of course, it's clearly this. Why are you repeating this? But at the time, it is so important to kind of remember that by the time you hit Ultima Thule, the fact that you hear it 3 separate occasions beforehand it's not the worst choice, especially with the amount that happens in between the 3 different times you hear it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's God knows it's an event-packed expansion, so
yeah.
They I mean, we've said this before, I know, but they earn it. They do earn the repetition, and I wouldn't be so quick to assume that it's been subverted. I know a lot of people are like, oh, we didn't even lose anybody. Breacher's words were ultimately incorrect, or I don't think they are. I think this game is going to pull the rug out on us at some point.
Yeah, or just yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways they could play with the tragedy of being the adventurer, the wanderer, right? The traveler. And perhaps even we might see Hydaelyn's words of, you must leave the star never to return, yet play into fact rather than metaphor.
It could be.
I mean, that's not even a theory I'm presenting. That's barely a hypothesis. It's merely a entertaining of thought.
Musing on it. Yeah, I get you.
Yes. So then we charge to the heart of the Tower of Babel, which is a cool dungeon.
Right, yeah. So Tower of Babel, let's take a look at the bosses and have a quick discussion of that.
They are Robot Dude 1, Scientist in Robot Dude 2, and then Anima itself.
Right. So,
I mean, it's not really, first one's not Robot Dude, it's more Frankenstein's monster.
Right, so obviously Tower of Babel, for people who don't know, is a biblical tower set in Babylon that was supposedly built by the ancient peoples of the world to reach heaven by building a really big tower. And the Abrahamic God saw this, was enraged, smote the tower, and divided the people of the world into different languages so that they could no longer all communicate as a species.
Which is interestingly has parallels to the Crystal Tower and Alag more than in some ways this tower.
And I think also the Asian's work, which Fandaniel was of course a part of, in dividing the people of the world.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah, absolutely.
Barnabas first, right? Barnabas
Yes. Barnabas is the first boss. Yes. The other thing about the Tower of Babel is it is from Final Fantasy IV. It is one of the major
Yes.
structures and plot points of that game as well.
Yes. And can I just say, I love how in the Barnabas model they managed to pay ode to the sort of original concept art looks of the character, because obviously we all love Amana's artwork. I can speak to myself at least that it's incredible.
Yeah, no, I love that they managed to pull that off, and that the two different bosses work really well for what they are for Tower of Babel, and then you race to the top, you get to the final elevator, everything starts out very Garlean and mechanical and gets more and more. There's this intrusion of the Geiger and the like anima stuff, and then you get to anima and it's woo.
Yeah. So Barnabas, which is interesting, is a figure from the Bible who was he was an early Christian, and he defended the Christians against people trying to convert them to a different religion. I wonder if it will come out that he was somebody trying to fight against the tempering, and he was given to that scientist Teluge by sort of in a oh god, what's he called? The final boss of Labyrinth of the Ancients.
I know, but the guy who was a rebel war hero, but then was taken by the Allagans and turned into basically.
Yeah, I wonder if in E3 we'll learn a little bit about that. Well, I know that we will, but I wonder if we'll get like a little allusion to that. And then we get the guy himself who puts into a Lugai, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's also weird because you see the guy beforehand and then so quickly, like it seems, it feels, because it looks like it's like less like a mech, it almost feels like he somehow managed to experiment on himself and turn himself into a robot in the time between you running from the first boss to the second boss.
Yes. Yeah, it does. I wonder if I wonder if it's a similar system to how, to Aulus's spirit transfer. I wonder if that's how it works.
Yeah, that was he seems very much like we wanted to use Aulus, but he's no longer around, so we can't. So here's Aulus Light.
Yeah,
like die Aulus.
Yeah, basically, right? But it was interesting enough, and then you get Anima, obviously the icon of icons,
and that fight it's not hard, but it's a good fight. I love that people are still shocked that it's not a trial and that it is a dungeon fight.
Oh, well, speaking of things that shock us early on in terms of primal fights, hey, we're coming on to one of those next episode.
Niniri, I have no idea what you mean. Also, at our current pacing, we're still somehow going to manage to be like 2 episodes out from talking about Zodiark.
I know, especially with how dense the moon stuff is. But Anima's great. It's a fun fight.
Yeah. Do you remember when we theorized that, or my original pitch for this was 7 episodes long?
How long would those episodes be? They'd be like 8 hours an episode.
Yeah, something like that. So we finish off Anima, and I love that the first note after that is Alfino proves once again his humanity by wishing Varys' soul to have peace, right?
Yeah.
Even he still is, life has fundamental value, and I'm going to respect that.
Yeah, I mean, Anima Varys, bad guy, evil guy. Kind of principled though. I mean, like, principled in a horrible way. Like what he was doing to the world, what he intended to do to the world was bad. But I mean, props him for resisting finally, for like being the last person to actually properly resist Ascian interventionism in.
Yeah. Varys exists on a spectrum between Gaius and Quintus, right? Like, again, not to say any of that Gaius is the good end of the spectrum, but that Varys, I think, thinks that humanity has the ability to determine its own destiny, and is a little bit more of the mind that if we don't conquer, we will be. Like, I think he does feel a little bit more like Quintus than Gaius. But I think a lot of his philosophy is rooted in Gaius in benevolent rule, right?
Yeah.
I do think he's sincere in that belief.
Yeah, I agree. I do think so. I agree with you.
And still bad for it, but again, a respect for sincerity.
Becoming Anima is a fate that you couldn't really wish on your worst enemy, right?
Yeah, no, not on anyone. Like, there are some things where it's like, even if I hate you so vehemently that I think the world would be better off without you, I'm still not going to wish that on you.
Yeah.
So we get to the control room.
Yes, the final part.
Fandaniel's voice actor is got some good evil cackles.
The voice acting in this expansion is so good.
Hermes' voice actor being able to do the Hermes voice and the Fandaniel voice and have them clearly be the same person, but also so like the difference between like, you know, maniacally evil, but also Hermes' voice doesn't sound so different.
No, it doesn't.
But yet it's still two different characters.
Yeah, there is a definite skill level there. I love it. I've always really loved. Never wanted to be one myself, but I've always really loved voice actors and seiyuu and all that. And I'm just so glad to see so many good ones being shown. I can't think of a single piece of voice acting in this expansion that wasn't good.
No, oh god, no. You can say that some are phenomenal while others are great, but I don't think you can say any are like, you know.
Yeah, and look, even Ilbert, obviously not part of this expansion, but even Slappe was iconic in its own way.
Someone admonished me on a recent stream because they referenced that, and I had utterly forgotten about it, and I was like, I literally have no idea what you're referencing.
Oh my gosh!
Because I played that scene in a vacuum, right? I don't read Reddit. I don't know other people, so I didn't even know it was a meme. I had no idea that was like a moment that everyone stuck in the collective consciousness.
Oh yeah, it's a huge meme. Oh, that's crazy.
I felt like such a neophyte. I was just sitting there streaming. I was like, I'm sorry. What are you talking about? But we then have what I believe I referred to earlier as a giant laser from space.
Oh, it's so good.
I was not on my bingo card. I was not expecting the Gateway of the Gods and the Tower of Babel to be a giant space cannon.
Yeah, but it makes so much sense, right?
Oh yeah. It totally. It's like, oh, of course. Well, why else would you need this much aether? I mean, I had theorized it was to open a portal to like the 13th or something. I think before launch, which I contend would have made some amount of sense for like a type of final day.
You could have done that.
What we got. Yeah, I love that I'm about to say this, but that was such a conventional thought. Yes, opening a doorway to hell to summon void demons in order to bring about an apocalypse. Too conventional.
It's crazy to me that you thought that, because you didn't know yet at the time that Fandaniel is Amon, but Amon tried that. That was Amon's last apocalypse attempt, was exactly that.
You're right, I hadn't even thought about that. I was right. I was just thousands of years late.
Yeah, exactly. That was specifically right.
That's really funny. Thank you for validating me to some extent. For validating as much as possible within being wrong.
Yeah, right. I love that they've managed to make moon tech feel diegetic to the world and make sense in the world.
Yeah. So do you think that we get the aether from that laser shot back? Does the aether return to the world? Or is it now just out in space?
It's probably in the moon's repositories. I get the impression that the moon is good at sucking in aether.
Yeah, I would hope so too, and that would give the Loperites more resources.
Yeah, they probably have more. I would imagine that their resources are vast anyway, but I would think that they probably have that in there. If I had to make it,
yeah.
I mean, we know the teleport is still working, so it probably has aether, in it now. That you could retrieve if you wanted to. That would probably be pretty good for the Galleons.
So the thing is that to all of that, I don't think that it's going to be like a problem. We're not going to be like, well, what about all the energy that was fired into space? Is that a story 6.2 story about how the world's lacking aether or something? I don't think it's anything like that. Nah. But I thought it worth pointing out that we did just expend a crap ton of aether into space.
Yeah, we did. I just sort of had the thought, what if Neo-Garlemald's on the moon?
I've been thinking about that. I forgot to bring that up, but I had been thinking about that as well. It would make a lot of sense. I could also imagine, though, just a new nation on the moon, like not just a Neo-Garlemald, but like a new something, not based in anything, an amalgamation of a bunch of different groups of people exodusing to the moon and making something fresh and something new.
Yes. Yeah.
But I totally think that that's one possible outlook, because if there becomes a refugee crisis, which I don't know why there would be because there's so much land for people to settle in, but you would then have to look to the New World, Mara City, or the Moon.
Yeah, exactly. And who knows? I mean, the New World and Mercy have their own powers on it, from what we know. It's now that Gabranth is dead. What if we see the Fourth Legion take lead of the Neo-Garlemald on the Moon, and the new Legatus is not Gabranth, sorry, is Golbez.
What a freaking idea! I think there's no question. We definitely haven't seen the last of the Legatus and that storyline and a lot of the conflicts around that storyline I think still have yet to be played out.
Man,
But
Golbez's armor would look really good as Judge armor.
Oh yeah, it would. But so the seal gets nearly broken from Zodiark, is on Zodiark, leaving only one of the elements left untouched. I'm sad. I looked to see, but they don't break in the order of the calamities, which I thought would have been cool.
Oh, that would have been cool. But I guess they would have all broken at that point then, right? Well, yeah, but
just like as a small touch, yeah.
Yeah. And I like that they don't explicitly state that this is a discussion for the next episode, actually, but I've started it now, so I like that they don't explicitly state that it's the fire binding, that they call it the searing binding, the striking binding, which is of course an allusion to the striking tree, to lightning striking, biting wind, drowning water, and all that. It's not subtle necessarily, but maybe only someone who knows aetherology to a degree would get it.
It's unobtrusive, and ergo, it doesn't draw your attention to it. But it is the thing, like, it is me and you got to that map, and it was one of the first things we looked for, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We were like, okay, wait, what?
I mean,
yeah.
I'm sure you remember the moment I landed in that map, I sent a message into the group chat saying, because you were ahead of me, you and Issa were ahead of me, saying, oh, the bindings are elemental.
Yep. And I remember you did that. I don't know if I said anything about it, but I was like, oh, thank God someone else like looked to that immediately.
Yeah, it almost feels like stuff like that feels like an in-joke. Well, no, not an in-joke, but like an in-reference for fans who are deeply invested in the lore.
Right, an added level of like how I was talking about making many threads to create a rope for like thematic ideas in 14. You create a complicated and nuanced worlds by many layers of detail, not by one big thing that's so good. It's no, you just have many threads and pieces and strata of things that give it life.
Right, exactly, and that's what they do. They do it so proficiently.
Hydaelyn, while possessing Kryl, comes in, and all I can ever think of, like, she seems like she's stumbling, and I'm just like, how long did it take her to get up to the top of the tower? Because you don't see her fighting on the way up Babel. So like, when did Hydaelyn? Okay, here's my pitch. She's stumbling because she teleported in somehow,
That's
and so
possible.
she didn't. You know what? That because otherwise, Kryl's having to like waddle up all the way through Babel.
Listen, that's Lalafell can do some miles on those legs.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
No, but I definitely, I did think, wow, how long has she been possessing her to get her up the tower?
Yeah.
But I do also wonder if perhaps, she somehow conveyed to Kryl the need to get up the tower, and Kryl got up the tower, and then as she was getting, to the top, she possessed her.
I think that's absolutely possible.
Because otherwise it's just awkward to think about her climbing the tower, walking past like Lugay and kicking him in the head or something.
On the sort of like observations like that though, so we were talking about the canon with breaking the seals. If Zenos is able to break the final seal later on, right? Why not just teleport to the moon to begin with and have him break the 6 seals?
Because we need to be there for it.
That's an interesting read. I was also going to just say that there's a difference in the amount of aether and strength required to break all 6 compared to breaking 1. And if they tried to like Zenos have him go break 1 and it took him a day to rest before he could break a second, well, we would immediately know what their plan is and run and get to the moon and stop them.
Yeah.
Versus trying to break them all at once.
I think it appeals to Zenos' grand sense of theater.
That's fair.
He's got, pardon my French, a huge boner over this situation. He wants it done this
it's true
way. It is.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I also think that we know that Fandaniel's plan was the Tower of the Gods was supposed to work, so it seems like he was like, okay, this is the backup plan. We'll go try this now. So he may not have even necessarily known if that would have worked to begin with.
It almost seems like Zenos is in a position where, like, he's kind of setting himself up to not just be able to, you play a video game, right, and you've got cheat codes. That's what Zenos' life is. He's strong enough to walk into any place that doesn't have us in it and just kill everyone there. More or less, I mean, I'm sure he can't face a literal army, but so I almost feel like he sort of handicaps himself sometimes to have fun, to try to have fun.
I mean, he states as much multiple times through
Stormblood, certainly.
And some in some of cutscenes with Endwalker, like what if you've already captured a foe and yada yada and all that. So I think there's explicitly in the text. I think that's true.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's the impression I get. I mean, I think it's both. I think it's because he wants you there with him at the moment of him consuming Zodiac or breaking Zodiac out and then doing so.
Yeah, and his theatrics and Fandaniel's theatrics. Imagine, I was imagining Zenos and Fandaniel reaching the moon after being diverted and then just staring around like, wait, where the fuck are we? like, wait, this isn't Mare Lamentorum.
That would have been, he lands on the dark side. It would be extremely fun if you landed in the cheese boss room.
Oh, they have to fight through like Smileton or something.
Yeah, that would be good. I would like to see that. Someone draw a comic on that.
I was just thinking, please, if we have any artists who watch. Actually, if we have any artists who watch, I beg of you, anything you draw will make my day. Might even make my year, because I love stuff like that. Well, with all of this said, next up is only one thing, Niniri. To the moon. To the moon, Niniri.
The moon. Straight to the moon.
Oh,
we're
going to the moon.
I know. I knew we were going to the moon, right? Obviously, I've known for some time because they announced it, but
we knew before Endwalker.
Yeah,
like we knew.
We knew. I mean, the moment that we knew. The moon's so significant. Yeah. Moons in general. I think I mentioned this in a previous episode. Listen, let me know. I think I did. But I just feel bad for Menfina. She's not a god of much anymore.
Well, speaking of Menfina, the moon, and symbols of the moon, we're about to go meet some bunnies. So that'll wrap it up here for today.
Yes, it will. I've got such fun notes for the moon. I really just cannot wait for the Mare Lamentorum episode.
It's interesting. Mare and Ultima Thule are the two that I have reviewed the least.
Really?
So I'm excited to rewatch a lot of those cutscenes a lot. Yeah, I haven't reviewed almost any of Mare or Ultima Thule. I don't think I've reviewed any of Ultima Thule except for the flower scene. That is the only scene I've watched, I think, more than once.
Right. Okay. Yeah, well, it's an amazing scene.
Yes. Well, and I've watched that more than once because I had to get footage, but I'm kind of saving Ultima Thule to like rewatch again and have all the emotions by the time we get back to it. I'm very, very excited.
Yes. Yeah, me too.
So with all of that said, feel free to check out some of our other content on the YouTubes or the website. And also don't forget to check out our Discord, link should be below, to have some fun times talking with all of our good Archons and talking about lore goodness as well as our own fun theories and just general 14 stuff. And lately people have been sharing their memes and screenshots. As well as if you've could consider offering $1 or $2 to us on Patreon. It really goes a long way and allows this whole thing to be far more sustainable. And the hope is to make it so it can be done in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. We get the most fun from this process by seeing the engagement, seeing how much you all enjoy it, or even just how invested you are. Even if you don't enjoy a video, just let us know, politely and help us grow. Emphasis on politely. But these episodes are really great, really fun to record, and we all just hope you enjoy them.
Yes, and also from now on, there may be some episodes, including potentially this one, that will have intros that might be me alone, because sometimes we record for 5 hours at a time, and they need to be split up into multiple episodes, and we forget to record more than one intro. So that may be a thing from here on out. I will try to make sure that we have some outros together, though.
Yeah.
But with all that said, I've been Elioaux Faucheron.
I've been Niniri.
And thank you so much for joining us. See you next time.
Yep, see you next time. Have a really great week.
This content was brought to you by the Eorzean Archives. If you enjoyed this video, help us please the 12 by leaving a like and subscribing for new content every Thursday. And comment down below with any topic you'd like to see our Archons cover in the future. For even more content, discussion, and exclusives, please check out our Discord and consider supporting us on Patreon.